So, hello, everyone. We're facing technical issues, and I'm in touch with the support teams of LinkedIn and StreamYard because obviously our live event on LinkedIn will only go live in a little bit less than 2 hours from now. So we decided to go live directly. And so a very warm welcome to everyone, and very sorry for the inconvenience. And thank you for joining us, even if you join us maybe a little bit later on. And we'll be watching this event afterwards. Um, Today we have the pleasure of hosting another um, webinar around this is our 8th episode on leading the change. And HP and I, we thought we bring some positive notes, or we want to bring some positive note beyond doom, and how we can envision a world that thrives despite all the sustainability, and maybe also because of the sustainability crisis we have in front of us. And for that, we thought we would invite a wonderful guest, a former student of mine, Easy. And let me maybe introduce you to Easy. Easy is very tall, I can tell you, and I'm not so short, okay, but he's really tall. And what is beautiful and what I like with him is not only did he live already in 3 continents, but he has a very diverse roots and heritage. And he is also a quantum technology or computer gig, which opened up quite a lot of prestigious doors of institutions for him, and which led him also to study in the Netherlands right now, where he does his bachelor in international business. And during his spare time this summer, he thought he could come to Barcelona and continue to study. So he was sitting in my class, not only sitting, also working. And during that time, in parallel, he was also working on a research project for an NGO on how to engage through social media the younger generation with regard to a more sustainable future. Now, before we dive into getting to know Easy more, and especially for you, dear audience, maybe some words about the format of this of our webinar. 20 minutes for us to discuss, for you to know about Easy, and then 10 minutes are dedicated to you to ask questions. Now, obviously, there might be some questions that you will be asking Easy afterwards, and Easy and us will make sure that you will get the answers, and please feel free to reach out to Easy yourself. So, Easy, welcome back, if I may
Hello.
say so. Hello.
Hello.
And I have already a first question.
hmm
Now, with regard to the course where you participated, which was around business transformation and how sustainability can be a formidable driver for business model innovation. Um, can I ask you what is a key takeaway that where you believe that it holds the most potential or transformative potential for businesses today?
Yeah, for sure. First and foremost, thank you very much for having me, both of you. It's an honor and a pleasure. And thank you for teaching me on that course. I learned a lot. I think I'd break down your question into two separate sides. One of them on a corporate level, and the other on a more personal and an individual level for my future studies, and my future career. So on the corporate level, as you so kindly put in your introduction to me, I am a business student, and I've learned a lot about corporate social responsibility, and we have modules and courses where we look into governance compliance and so on and so forth. And it always seems to be the idea of sustainability and circularity seems to be tacked on in post. Like you want to build your business, and then you have sustainability that you need to just make sure that you adhere to. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me from your course was how it plays. You can play a role, an integral role, using sustainability as a USP. For example, you can use sustainability and circularity to drive your product, and give yourself a competitive advantage, which isn't necessarily the general consensus that I get from studying my course. And we're moving into a more consumer conscious era. You had last podcast on, you had a great fashion talk. I watched that, it was great. And you were talking about sustainability in the fashion world, which has a lot of its own problems. And I think we're getting to a point with consumer consciousness where demand for sustainable products is up, and so you can definitely position yourself, contrary to what I think I personally studied, to benefit from that. And then on a secondary level, on a more personal level, for me, being able to critically look at and analyze corporate social responsibility, like you had us looking at impact reports, sustainability reports, and being able to read that and smell the good from the bad, smell parallel searching and looking at reports of who's saying what, when, why are they saying that, and does the media narrative line up, does journalism line up as a whole? And I think for me, the idea of greenwashing, green hushing, two completely new concepts to me, which are very important in I think today's climate. I think that it really helped me get to a personal position where I can apply this not only to sustainability, but I can apply this elsewhere and look at corporate messages, government messages, and more analyze them from a different angle that I wouldn't have had prior to our course. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Izzy, let's move to a topic. I think you said before already in the first question, the business side. So you're a business student, and I would like to talk about something where I think it is very close to your heart. You said that you're an advocate of Gen-Z leadership. So in your opinion, how crucial would you say is it for companies to integrate, to listen to your young and diverse voices, and also give you guys space in decision making that could be via tools like sounding boards, or there are any others? Especially, I think, if we consider we are talking about your generation's future.
And yeah, you're right. I think Catherine so wonderfully brought in so many guests from her network while we were taking her course, and I got to pick the brains of some of the executives of some of these some very well-known organizations. And I think to answer my stance, I'd start at the end. Why wouldn't companies want to employ young people? What are the risks associated? And I think I'll build my argument from there. So I think employing young people, and I'll admit we don't know all of the things that your generation and the current leaders of the world know, and we're riskier endeavors. We need a lot of guidance. I'll admit that. And we have a higher turnover than previous generations. You go back 50, 60 odd years, when you're employed, you end up retiring from that first place of employment, excuse me. And that simply isn't the case anymore. And I think we're definitely approaching a space where our loyalty to organizations isn't necessarily what it used to be. And I think that, and I can acknowledge that as a weakness of our generation, but I also think it doubles as our strength. We as young people don't know what it's like to run an organization from your perspective, Catherine, where you were running Mercia, and I don't know what it's like for you to deal with the stakeholder and shareholder pressures, having to meet KPIs, quarterly reviews. I don't know what those pressures are like, but I think because of those pressures, it puts a lot of young people in a position where we can help move and mitigate the tunnel vision that happens with some of these organizations. A great example of that is Kodak, and they famously developed the digital camera and sat on it because they thought that their current model was good enough. And we have the innovator's dilemma, and there are so many examples. And ultimately, at its core, for me, it's you can't drive a car and know what you look like as you're driving by at the same time. Or sustainability speaking, you can't drive an EV. You can't drive a vehicle and know what you look like until you give up the driver's seat and watch it drive by. And I think the implementation of that it matters, because eventually, whether you like it or not, we're going to get the keys. And when we do get the keys, the state in which we're left is going to be heavily dependent on how your generation and the generations, before you have dealt with it. And so, I look at good examples like Facebook CEO, where, his character or how he acquired the company and all those other things notwithstanding, he's been under a lot of pressure in the past. When he moved Instagram and Facebook from chronological to algorithmic, that was a massive, oh, why are you doing that? And there was a lot of pushback for that. And flash forward 5 years, we're now in a space where TikTok and other algorithms rule the world. And we're in a space where it's like, okay, well, he was right there. And I don't know if the metaverse is going to work. I can't speak on that. I'm not an expert. But that kind of forward thinking, I think young people can bring. And so, to tie that all together, I think ultimately it's a mutually beneficial transaction. We're going to get the keys. How we get the keys is dependent on you. And you get to experience what you look like from the outside. And we get to know how the machine runs on the inside, which is, I guess, why I feel so passionate about it.
I love the analogy with the keys. Thank you. I will keep it.
For sure.
No, I think it's absolutely right what you say. People, leaders of this company, there is also so many as you said rightly, what's the risk in listening to you guys? You cannot lose, you can only win. And I think you are absolutely right. No, it's true.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
Hey, on another topic, which I think is very, very much aware amongst, especially amongst your generation, and if we think about the escalating urgency around the topic of climate change, but there are so many other environmental threats currently going on beyond this climate change. Think about deforestation, think about pollution, think about biodiversity loss, or even overpopulation. So if you take all of that, what immediate actions would you recommend businesses should take now, on the one hand side, to mitigate the impact, but also to create and to champion a sustainable future?
Okay. Well, I mean, it's a great question, but it's a massive question. And it really calls in a lot of essential elements of how we're going to tackle this problem. And in all honesty, I don't know if I'm fully qualified to say, what's going to dictate the next moves that will lead us to success. I don't know if I'm qualified, nor do I know if there's anyone that truly is. I can point out the more typical in our circles of sustainability. I can point out, circularity, supply chain integration, and you have, all of the moves that will be necessary that are not bad moves, but, we need to create an environment in which we get everyone on board. And so, for you and I, it's, we've heard these things before, and they are essential. But I think my forte and my personal, attachment with this issue, I'm going to approach this question from a different angle. And so what I'd like to look at is climate change and this, biodiversity and all of this environmentalism, I guess you can put it as a blanket topic, and its perception problem. I've personally seen in the world that, generally we fall into almost two groups, and climate change has an image problem. It has a branding crisis, if you want to call it that. Being the business major I am, I see climate change as an issue that impacts everyone. It's something that is meaningful to everyone. But when I look at the general narrative, it seems to have been bundled up in other issues. And, allow me to preface by saying, again, my views are very Western centric. They're very European centric. I grew up in the UK. I went to international school in Singapore. I lived in the US for a year. And so I don't mean to comment on the entire state of the world, but at least through my specific worldview, the image problem that it has is because, climate change is being branded with the liberal agenda. It's being put into things that isolates and alienates half of its audience. And, if we want to, as businesses, if we want to, as organizations, if we want to, as governments and people, ultimately create a space in which everyone is tackling this issue, I think we need to fix that branding crisis. Do I have all the answers for that? No, not necessarily, and not yet. But I can look at some certain aspects that I think will mostly benefit everyone. And so, one of them is the detachment from the real world. We're fighting a ghost, kind of like COVID. You don't see what is making the impact, and it's difficult for, you can intellectualize a problem, but until you practically apply it, like what, we were doing with Catherine in my course with sustainability. I know the theory and you know the theory, but there's a disconnect between the real world, because you can't see it, and what the theory on it is. I think that needs to be bridged, and how we go about that, courses like what the one that Catherine had, and maybe implementing that into education, I think will help. And I can't necessarily speak for everyone, but I think, when we zoom into my generation specifically and tackling this issue, authenticity is where I think will really come into a head. Our generation, I think more so than many others, value authenticity above a lot else. Whatever you do, do it loud. Like, if we've moved away from conventional media, we don't watch cable TV anymore because it seems so artificial. Now on social media channels, we have, outlets like, Dylan Page, who's one of the leading news sources for so many young people, and he's just an individual from Brighton. He's just a guy. But we prefer listen to people like that than, these massive organizations, because there's a trust problem. And so I think, building authenticity, if your brand comes from a place of authenticity, we're going to be attracted to you more so than others. There are companies that I've witnessed on social medias that have young people at the helm, and they're running their social media accounts. And, instinctively, it's like, I want to work at your company. You seem like you care about these issues. You seem like you care about us as people. You seem like you care about handing us the keys. And so, yeah, of course I want to work for you. And then, obviously monetary incentive, but for a lot of young working people, you've had the quiet quitting phenomena. There's a big air of, we selectively care about what you want us to, and you want us to work forever with, no benefits to ourselves. It's not going to happen. And so I think if we tie in authenticity to brand images and get people on board by, closing that partisan gap that's happening in politics, I think we can really make a noticeable change on a long-term basis.
Yeah. I like what you said because I think people, there are terms like greenwashing, etc., but people underestimate that also your generation, you can look through it. They are not authentic if they just, pretend to be sustainable or whatever. So I think it pays back, and it can fire back. Let's better say that like that. It can fire back massively, because I think it's, as you said, it is your generations. You will get the keys in the future. You guys need to be on board, and you guys need to be persuaded that this or that corporation is the right one, where you would really put your energy, your enthusiasm, and you guys would engage. Mm-hmm. And I think it is very important that people or leaders really realize that this is becoming more and more important for your generation, those generations to follow.
For sure.
I think that why I'm so passionate also about sustainability is like when you restructure companies. Usually in the problem, you find also the solution. And when was it? I think the other day I heard someone saying about energy, saying something, a sentence, a phrase that really hit me. And he said, we have to destroy something to capture the energy to drive whatever we are going to do or going to be driving. And as example, he said turbines, automobiles, and other example like also electricity, the generation of electricity. And I think that it is time for every one of us also to learn how to put in front or to use the sustainability crisis to push us forward in the innovation space, to drive us and to rethink about how can we make things differently. And it's about, it's about caring, it's about bringing people on board, because no one can solve this dilemma on its own or on his or her own. So I totally, I mean, I love the very straightforward and frank tone you shared with us, and I totally agree that with what you were saying. And I think it's also the opportunity for large corporations, but also for every company to continue into that journey of transformation. Now, coming back to the educational piece, what would you, I mean, what are the gaps that you perceive so that you can be even better, even more be better equipped to solve these all these challenges?
Okay, yeah, I think, again, very general question, and it's a good question, and it's a question that really matters to the future of what we're going to go on to build, and to kind of break that down. I think what we're equipped with is really going to matter, and so I'll tie that into the end of my answer. But I think now that I'm at the tail end of my undergraduate career, I'm about to go on to do a master's, and then I'm going to be a part of the working and productive world. I kind of understand the framework upon which education is built. I know the pipeline now, and I think how you impact and where specifically at what educational level you want to build an impact is really going to heavily matter. And so I think, essentially lower, middle, and high school from, the US system, those schools right up until undergraduate level are there to build a foundation that will be built upon in university. You chisel away at it at university, you get a more comprehensive understanding, but generally they want in that period of school, Western European, from my personal experience, they want you to be able to build a foundation that you'll go on to be productive with. And I think how you tie in sustainability in these issues is going to really matter. And I have some examples of that. And I think at the middle school and the high school level, sustainability, and again, it's the separation thing. Sustainability and the rest of school have an image problem. And you look at, in my head, I have, the natural sciences as their own group, and then you have math and English over there, and they have geography, the humanities, religion, philosophy, all of those things grouped over there. And sustainability is just kind of tacked. Every now and then, we do a module on sustainability, because the ice caps are melting in geography. Completely gone, lost in the abyss of knowledge that you compile over your years of academia. I think what needs to happen, for example, I'm a business student. I've also studied history. In the UK specifically, we do a lot on the Industrial Revolution and how it led us to where we are today. And there would be such a prime opportunity to talk about how that was the catalyst for such amazing outcomes. And in our educational system, they glorify it. But you could say, look, this is the invention that led us to where we are. However, there are also the downsides with that. We also have, factories. And when I get into business school, one of the first things you learn, Henry Ford, first to make the assembly line, great thing for productivity. It also facilitated a lot of the changes that we will go on to see in the future. We'll go on to be witnessing in 50 years, the impact of all these factories. And so I think what we really need is like a comprehensive implementation of sustainability in each one of the schools. And we've seen examples of this in previous aspects of education. You go back again, specifically to America and much of the West, you go back and you look at, the civil rights movement. When that's implemented into foundational education, we look at the transatlantic slave trade. When it's implemented there, it's normalized through the rest of society. And then we have the same thing, the suffrage movement, women's rights, normalized through the rest of society. I think it's pivotal that we build that into the foundation so that we can go on and do and build what we want for a sustainable future. And then the final thing I'll say on that is keeping it open-ended. A lot of I think the pitfalls of the movement is that it's the sustainability movement is that it's a real issue, and we know it's a real issue. However, there's an air to which, as I was talking about the agendas earlier, there's an air to it where it's like, who do we believe? I don't know whether or not you're just doing this to push your agenda or someone else's agenda. And we're in such a polarized age where it's, we get, countercultures that are going against climate change, which is against it's against science. But because of how polarized everything is, we're not equipped to know, we're skeptical of everything. And so I think how you equip us, I think at university, specifically at mine, we have skills workshops, how to read. I'm currently doing a minor in philosophy right now. And it's, how to read, Nietzsche, and we're doing how to write analytical philosophical essays. And these are classes that I attend voluntarily. I want to go and learn these things because I'm personally equipping myself with what I'm going to need to go on and be, I think productive. And I think keeping it open-ended really matters because, we have the keys. And again, using that analogy, what's really happening is you're handing us the keys to a castle on fire. And we know that, and you know that, and you've only realized that the castle is burning 20 years ago. You need us to help you. We need you to help us. Mm-hmm. But when it's forced on us, and there's a lot of sentiment in the younger generations where it's like, oh, all that woke stuff, just keep that to yourself. When you're forcing it on us, you're isolating us because you're just saying, hey, this is really a problem, which it is, and going, you need to fix it with us, please, please, please. And so I think, education really matters, and building that foundation and making sure it's open-ended. Give them the tools like what you did. I can go through now, I have the knowledge to go through an impact report and go, that doesn't smell right. There's something that's not right here. And I think that has now led me to be more conscious because you never really forced it on me. I came to you voluntarily and you gave me what I need to go out and be more critical. And I think if we do that on a mass level, we want to do good, and we want to be in a world that's thriving. It's, beyond doom. We're very skeptical, somewhat nihilistic, slightly existential, but we want a world that is going to be beneficial to all of us. And so I think that's how education is really going to play a role.
You gave me goosebumps. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
It's a nice finishing word, I would say. And I think for me, it was very interesting to have someone from your generation. So as you know, I have 2 kids who are also in the Gen Z, and these discussions are happening quite often also to me. But I think it's very, enriching and makes me, at least, it gives me the motivation to keep going what we are doing, what Catherine and I are doing, and just to spread the word. And I think too, it's good. We need to think if we can involve more of your generation, because I think it's very new. You get more stimulus. So thank you very much, Izzy.
Thank you.
All the best for your future endeavors.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I'm asking the ones who are online if they have questions, and else, please raise your question or ask them. Put them on the comment. We'll post. We'll give you also the address, the LinkedIn link where you can watch the video right away. And Easy will, definitely reply to it, unless he will delegate it to me. We'll see. How it will go. Okay. Catherine, I totally agree. The challenge is massive. But what I can tell you from the past, when restructuring companies and saving them, it is what makes it worth it. It is what brings people together, creates the bond to create the future together. And this is something I would like every one of us to always keep in mind, that we humans have an ability to build something, and to build something for the good. And if we pass the last 50 years on efficiencies, right now it's also the time to continue to shift our focus on building what is the right thing to do, and which is the effectiveness. And the earth is there to tell us where we can go, where we go right, and where we go wrong. And when I see all the efforts made when it comes to plastic pollution, to clean up the ocean, to plant the earth, to learn about forgotten techniques, all around the world. I think it is something which inspires me. I mean, I think as well as you younger generation, right?
For sure.
Okay, so I mean, I'm sorry, Easy, for this technical problem. I mean, you weren't able to talk directly with people. So we'll continue the dialogue in the back, in the back office, if I may say so. And thank you for having joined. I mean, Hans-Peter's and my webinar. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Okay,
thank you so much
for joining us. Okay,
so
bye-bye.
I'm going to end the stream now.
Yes.
So